Sponsor.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to, this is month 2? Yeah, this is month 2 of
Woo!
2025.
Made it to another month,
Welcome
baby.
back to the 3 Leadership Podcast. I am Dennis Herring, one of the hosts here, along with my boy Dozy here next to me.
What's going on?
And today we are doing part 2 of Cultural Conversations. Now, just a couple housekeeping things. So I wasn't even announcing this to our team, but I wanted to make sure everyone had the fun surprise. So Dozy, we got a couple cool things coming up. So one is that Dozy and Danny, 2 of our hosts, are branching off their own podcast now as well, part of the 3D Leadership Podcast, and are going to be starting to do conversations, just theology conversations, thought conversations, similar topics, but just diving deeper biblically into different concepts. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to have that on the YouTube channel as well. And then Dozy was given the impression to want to do some devotionals. So keep an eye out for a playlist coming out of just devotionals that he's going to be doing. So we're going to be having a new podcast along with new devotionals, and we're going to be launching a Patreon. Now the Patreon is going to be focused around holistic success, right? So personal finance, marriage, relationships, you name it. It's all about personal growth to be able to make sure you're maximizing each day the best way that you can. There is going to be basically a college affordable fee attached for the specific content that you're going to get access to, but it's coming out your way. We've had a lot of feedback on wanting to get different topics on here, and let's be honest, one conversation a month ain't going to do it. So we're going to create different vehicles, different pathways, and hopefully get you guys the content that you're looking for. But for today, we've got back my friend Sana and Parker. How you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Sweet. So the whole conversation today is going to be, one more, I almost forgot. For those who are online, I'm not going to ask you to like and subscribe because that sounds tacky. You will if you like it, and you'll share it if you like it. So do your thing, enjoy the show. If you're in the store, feel free to come hang out, sit down, get some water and chill, and just have a good time.
Let them know where we're at.
So,
Let them know where we're at.
yeah, we are, as always, live from Mom Christian Gifts. So we always will shout out Mom Christian Gifts for hosting us, for taking care of us, for helping this whole thing come into being, which still is a shock to me. But we're here and we're pumped. So for the conversation today, a whole focus on personal development. What does that mean to you? Either one of you, go.
Go. Okay. Well, I think for everyone, we're all on a journey, aren't we? And I think we don't want to stay in the same place. So I think personal development comes in. It looks very different. It looks very different in different aspects of life. I know for me, the main thing that I want to be continuously developing personally is my relationship with the Lord. Like, I never want to be static. Like, I never want to be not growing in my love for Jesus and my knowledge of the Bible and how I am, how I'm healed, how that I walk out freedom and all of those kind of things. So I think that's a big one, just always working on personal development in being intentional with time with the Lord and things like that. But then, I don't know, there's always ways that we can grow and learn and develop in life, whether that's in our careers, in our family life and everything like that. But I think for me, the main personal development is if we are walking closer and closer with the Lord each day, well, first of all, everything else is affected through that. You know, if you're walking closer to Jesus, suddenly I'm having more inspiration in my job. Suddenly I'm loving my family better. Like, all of that kind of happens. But it takes work. It takes intentionality. Like, it takes getting up earlier in the morning and spending an hour reading your Bible. Like, it really takes, putting work in. So I think that's what I would see as one thing of personal development. The main thing is when we develop our relationship with Jesus, everything else is blessed through that.
Yeah, and I think it's that waterfall of, okay, if I know that if I'm investing in myself spiritually, then I can have the emotional capacity to invest in my relationships with others. I can have the capacity to then spend time and invest in learning, right, myself. And I think that's where it becomes us as well-rounded human beings who can be a light in the world. And it's not just it's me pouring into time individually in relation with others, and then as a result, not only just people that I know or spend time with, but now people that I just come across in the street, or if I'm traveling to another country, or if I'm at work and I'm working with a client, like I have, because I've poured into myself, or because I've invested time where it's important, then I have the capacity when it otherwise wouldn't have been important to invest or pour into other people as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I love what you said to begin your talk, because what you said was like personal development. It's all a journey. It is a journey.
Yeah.
With the beautiful thing, which is still counteractive to how we live, is that personal development, there's no end goal to it.
Right.
It literally is a journey. It literally is a constant running.
We're never gonna reach.
There's not a goal,
No
end goal,
destination.
and it's weird
Yeah.
because it's like everything that we do normally in life, there's like an end goal that we're trying to get to.
Right.
But relationship with Jesus, relationship with our Lord and Savior through our different avenues of life and things like that, it's like, oh no, there's no end goal. It's just the natural progression of things to where Jesus reveals something else about me. Something
Yeah.
else that I need to learn, something else I need to maybe do better at or not do, or acknowledging that, oh no, you do really do really good at this. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny because, sometimes I ask myself, like, what exactly is personal development? Honestly, what I've learned in my life is that experience can teach you a lot of things, but the habits and discipline that you pay towards those, towards your lives, towards your job, to your relationships, those things really do impact how you grow, how you get towards where you least see yourself or where you believe you're supposed to be and where your purpose is.
Right.
I think it's beautiful too, because when it comes to Christ, when it comes to God, He honors discipline. He honors personal developments. I mean, it's in Proverbs too. It says, I'm going to butcher the verse, but basically, hard work pays off. Don't take any shortcuts. Basically what he says in Proverbs. Those who take shortcuts lead to ruin. Those who work hard each and every day, they reap the benefits of the rewards. And it's funny because you see many, many times in the Bible, God using people who are disciplined in their work and disciplined in those things for Him to really show His glory in this. Yeah. One of my favorite stories is in the book of Daniel. When everybody talks about Daniel, they think about Daniel in the lion's den, him being in the lion's, God not allowing him to get ripped up by the lions, and him just chilling. What I love about that story I love that part. Don't get twisted. It's an amazing part.
Very cool.
But what was beautiful about that is what Daniel was doing before it even led to that point.
Yeah.
From my understanding from the book, because I don't want to butcher it, but he prayed at the same time every day. He was disciplined in the Lord. He knew that the Lord was the one who was preparing him and guiding him throughout his life. And so he never took a day off to honor God and to take that time. So when the situation happened where it was illegal to do that and that there could be consequences towards that, he's like, look, my life is His. I'm going to do this.
That's good.
It's beautiful because when that test comes, because of the discipline and the time he took, he was ready for it. It's not like he was just, like he had no fear or anything like that. Like they just came to him. It was, no, I may have fear, I may be scared, but I'm prepared.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it, because this is what God's led me to do. And if this is where my life ends, at least I'm going to go out honoring God. And I think that's the beauty of it. And so with us, what I want our personal development to really be growing towards is, where's that moment where I can be like, okay, with all the things that God's prepared me for, this is the moment where I get to honor Him. I may be scared, it may be tough, but you know what? This is it. I'm going to do that. And seeing where God shines in that. And I think that's the beauty of personal development. But I do have a question for you guys. So, either one of you guys can choose. So, we talked a little bit about where you guys are doing and how you guys are serving the Lord. Like, I guess my question is, it's getting a little personal, but like, where do you feel like, just off the conversation, your next step as far as personal development is? Or like where God's maybe leading you guys?
Yeah.
So for if people haven't seen the other podcasts and don't know, like I'm a missionary. So I'm a global director of missions for a global movement, and a lot of my job involves traveling around the world, and I feel like I'm very often jet lagged in life, or I've caught an African disease and I'm in hospital, or like there's different things that come up that I like throw me out of routine and throw me out of like even kind of my rhythm with the Lord in a way. So like I feel like what I'm trying to establish in my life with like personal development is like finding my rhythm with Jesus when there's so many factors going on that can disrupt it.
Yeah.
So like and I feel like for me personally, especially with what I do on the mission field, I need to know that me and the Lord are like tight.
Walking hand in hand.
Yeah. And even what you were
That's
saying about
good.
that Daniel story, it's like when after it's made illegal, like I love what it says in the Bible about the windows were open
Yeah.
and he prayed.
Like he wasn't hiding.
He wasn't hiding.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing it secretly. And I think for me, like even this last year was very hard for me in every area of life, but one thing that I was like, I need my relationship with the Lord to be so strong and so tight that it doesn't matter what happens. Like if I'm in a nation, and I don't want to go like crazy dramatic, but if there's like persecution or something, like I need to know that I am strong enough in the Lord that I'm going to be like, no, Jesus is my Lord and my Savior, and I love him with all my heart and all of kind of that thing. But I feel like it's sometimes hard to find that rhythm when I'm like exhausted or sick or like thrown out of routine, because I recognize that. So back in November, I was like, I am gonna dedicate this month I dedicate every month to the Lord. But as in,
Just this month.
Just November 2024.
But October, that's me. No, but November, that's you, Lord. You can have November.
You can have November. December's mine.
It's at the evening.
Exactly.
Crazy.
But I was like, I want to dedicate like extra time and intentionality. So I deleted social media for a whole month, and I got up at 6 a.m. every day and would start with like Bible reading, affirmations, like journaling, spending time with the Lord, praying. Like I did like a whole fat, juicy chunk of time with the Lord, and I felt better than I have like ever done, and I feel like it just set me up. It like I was ready for the day. I felt more secure in who I am, because like I can really wrestle with insecurities, but suddenly it was like, oh no, my foundation is in Jesus, that it doesn't matter what anyone says to me or what they think. I'm like, I know who I am. And it just, I had a much better way to be able to tackle just the day.
Beautiful.
But then, you get December and suddenly I'm traveling, and then like I'm jet lagged and I'm thrown out of routine, and I have like no consistency in my day or my week, and I'm just like, ah! And then I was like actually grieving and missing the time that I was having with Jesus, because it was like thrown out of whack. So I feel like even for me, like I need to somehow develop the way of being able to have my rhythm and my routine when life gets crazy. Like how can I still have that consistency and still have that discipline? So even like, oh, I'm completely jet lagged, but no, I'm still going to get up at 6 a.m. and I'm still going to spend this time with Jesus. I'm not going to scroll or get distracted by something else, but have like the discipline and intentionality in spending time with him.
Yeah. No, I love that. I want to hear Parker before I answer.
No, it reminds me of Philippians 4, where Paul talks about like, I've learned the secret to being content in every situation. It's like the amount of like stuff that life throws at us, and this is like Paul. He's like he doesn't have social media.
No, I've been there.
He's like in this totally different situation. But like the core theme that we see throughout everything, he's got all of these things that are going on and ups and downs and everything. And I think that's like where what you're talking about really resonates with me, of like learning like what is it to be anchored in God, whether things are going well, if I'm jet lagged, or if things are really bad in the business, if things are going really well, if we're doing new launches, whatever it is. Like I have this foundation that is contentment. And I think it's been really easy to, like, you know, anywhere, like if this is kind of the middle where things feel okay, it's like anywhere above that, like it's easy. It's like, oh yeah, I've learned this secret of being content is every situation. Like I said, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like at any time there's the dip, it's like that's when our faith is really tested, or like it's like who is our strength from, right? And if our strength is from the Lord, then us having that contentment should really be felt in those moments when things aren't going well, right? And so just being challenged by that, and really like asking God, like, show me your glory in those situations. Show me you in the moments where I don't feel worthy, where I don't feel like I'm being a good partner or a good leader or a good friend, or like whatever the situation is. Because again, personal development, it's all areas of life. It isn't just us as Christians. It's us as, you know, a father role, a brother role, a sister role, whatever our role is with that individual relationship. And so that's where I'm like an anchor on God and on the Word.
No, I love that. The word you use, anchor, is so real, because I think that's where we get a lot of freedom. I feel as though what happens, like what you talk about, right? When you're so distracted with the world and so distracted with everything that's going on, you lose that anchor. You can lose that sense of acknowledgement of like who God is and what He's doing in life. And I can tell you what happens to me when that happens, because the phrase that God has been telling me like a lot the last couple of weeks is slow down.
Yes.
Slow down. Like you're starting to like get like starting to only think about what's going on with you. Like you need to come back to me. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk. Because what happens is when you listen to God and you really talk with Him, for me, this is what happens. I start to really consider other people. I start to really consider, oh man, God, what was my purpose again? That's right. I was supposed to be, let me hit up him. What's going on with his life? Oh, what's going on with him? Like, one of the craziest things, and he's off camera now, but one of the craziest things that happened to me was I was at a low point, I think in, when did we meet, Danny? I know you're not off camera, but like, when did we meet? Was it January or December, that conversation? Maybe 2 weeks? It wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was much. Yeah, maybe a month ago. Yeah, and I came to him and
in 2025.
It was 2025. Yeah, I came to him because I was struggling. I was
on a Wednesday.
I guess I was tired with work. I was struggling with, my wife. She's pregnant and we're about to have a baby, and I'm glad for that. No, I wasn't struggling with that, but it was just I wasn't struggling with that. No, that's beautiful. No, but it was like a lot of spiritual. I felt like a lot of spiritual attacks on me as far as like self-doubt about who I was and God and everything like that. And I went to Danny because we were talking about the podcast, like what we wanted to do, but it turned into him just kind of like looking at me like what's going on with you? Like, just let's talk. And basically it was funny because it's been a long time since I had someone question my faith, but he questioned it deeply. He was like, based on what it says, like, all right, then you don't believe. And like that's just what he told me. He's like, you don't believe. That's just what it is.
He tends to say that.
Yeah, and no, but what was beautiful about that, it was like, whoa, that's what you feel when I said that. Like, yeah, you don't believe. And for me, what that woke in me was something like, what's up with me? Like, why do I feel this way? And what I felt was I didn't have that time. I didn't have the time to really talk to God about what it is I was feeling.
Yeah.
And what it is I was feeling at the time was some discontentment. And what was going on was like I was afraid to talk to God about it because I felt like He would judge me, like He would tell me like I shouldn't be feeling that way. Because it's like, look at all the beautiful things that's going on in life. Like, why do you feel this way?
Right.
But I was real with him about it, and I told him what I was discussing with, and what he told me was, see, I can handle it. He's like, see, it's all good. Now that it's off the chest, you feel better now? I was like, yeah, I feel a lot better. I was like, God, I feel a lot better. He's like, yeah, no, you're good. And so what I hear when you say that is, when you start your day off with God, right, and you start that time off with just remembering who He is, remembering who you are, it really does set you up for success. As far as leadership, as far as what you want to do in your career, as far as like what your relationships wants to be like, because what that happens is when you're settled and you're firm on your foundation as far as like where God has you, you go into the world thinking much different, much more clear, much more understanding of what's going on around you, of the people you're talking to, and opportunities that you wouldn't be wise to if you didn't see that.
Right.
So I think those are things that like I really took from y'all's conversation.
That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to transition, still on the topic, but just a slightly different direction. You mentioned you wanted me to share this earlier. So in the idea of knowing who you are, your values, like knowing whose you are, etc. And I guess anyone who's in the store right now, who's listening, will get the whole backstory now. So what people see on camera, what they see in the store, this didn't exist 3 years ago.
Yeah.
What we see now wasn't even the initial idea. So, and this will hopefully make you laugh a little bit. So I got the word 7 years ago that I was eventually gonna start a podcast. I said, cool, tried it, didn't work. Great. All right, 3 years go by with constant confirmation. Oh God, nothing's happening. Like clearly, I got to a point where I literally prayed and said, I'm annoyed by this guy. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm annoyed. Like let's table it, just chill. And like, let me know when it's time to go. I'm done. I'm done hearing it. No joke. I did not hear one confirmation anymore. Huh. I felt so much peace about it, which was, I almost felt weird saying I felt good about it because I got so annoyed by it. During that time, I was in the process of beginning to gain desire to self-educate, like watch YouTube videos of X, Y, and Z, read different books, read the Word, etc. Well, here's the funny part. So I'm finally at that place, and my buddy Isaac and I, we start our own little thing, see where it goes, didn't go anywhere. So, okay, this isn't the right time. So God, I feel like something should be happening, so I'm at a place now, I'm happy, I've started to develop myself. When we're at a place where it's time, I'm open to letting me know again. Because it got to a point where I was so annoyed hearing it, and I was tired of it.
Yeah.
But what God showed me was I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
And He started teaching me, I can't take you where you aren't ready for yet. You aren't ready to handle what's coming your way. And so I walk in the store one day when it was actually a different store, like when it was actually a whole different brand. And over the course of time, maybe 6 months or so after the store now existed, I was asked by Monica, the store owner, hey, I know you guys do youth, like you speak at conferences, do all types of things. We have all this stuff going on for adults, for seniors, etc. Can you do something for youth? Like, can you do like a?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Can you do something like leadership for
about
youth?
that.
And I was like, sure. What the?
Yeah.
Sure. What?
That was the conversation.
I had no idea what was going on at the time. Prayed about it. I got confirmation this was the time to start. So I put this is how I knew this was God doing it, because only my genius self would make this happen. So I put an interest meeting out there for April 1st of 2023.
Fool's Day.
And I realized the day of, I was like,
that was I said, yo, hey, listen, people. Sorry, that was hilarious to me because when I got it, I was like, "Are you serious?"
Like, I'm actually dead serious about this. I didn't realize the date. This was the date, but this is the date. We're doing this. Yeah. And I actually had a lot of people reach out to me. Hey, great joke. I was like, this isn't a joke. I'm actually hosting a meeting about this. So I show up here. For the first 10 minutes, no one's here. And I'm like, no one believed this. This is not going to, I'm not going to get stood up by everybody.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, Dozy walks in, who we'd known each other before, before this from like other churches and whatnot. In walks Dozy and Danny then. And then in walks another friend of ours who's done some other ministry stuff now. Well, I said, hey guys, sit down. I got some vision to share. I realized somehow my notes got deleted off my iPad.
Oh, perfect.
So I had nothing to go off of. So they asked us, so what are we doing? I said, I had an idea, but now I don't know. So, well, tell me the concept. No idea. What are we starting? No idea. I have no idea.
No, it was
and then I actually said, before you ask me the next question,
no idea.
No idea. Like, I'm legit lost right now. All I know is it's supposed to be youth related, it's supposed to be leadership related, and that's it. Yeah. So, okay, well, who's hosting it? I don't know.
Oh yeah, I remember this too because it wasn't like he was trying to be a host or anything at all. We literally was like, he was like, okay, maybe I'll just stay in the back and just chill out, and I will maybe oversee something. Like, can you do it, Dozy? Can you? It was kind of funny because we really did not know what we were gonna do. We were like, and it was funny because I didn't even know what I was there. I think when I met Danny first, I think Danny thought I was really quiet. He was like, yeah, exactly, right? He was like, yo, I don't think I spoke when I was there until the end. Yeah.
You didn't.
Then Danny was like, oh man, you speak a lot. Oh, you're should say something. No, it was great. No, you can continue though. I just because my vision of it was kind of similar to. I was like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing.
So long story short, we have a conversation and we start creating this whole idea of leadership development project webinar something. So this is way too long of a title, but this is the best way I can describe this. We got a graphic made, everything, and the first like 2 or 3 like recordings we do, no one was, people kind of walked in and out, but no one really stayed. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the kicker. This is where we knew God was doing something.
Yeah, I think I know what you're
We all three started realizing at the same time, we started developing a deeper relationship with God in the same month.
Right.
Started doing personal development the same month.
Wow.
And God opened these doors.
Yeah.
Cool. Our third recording takes place. Two younger kids, high school, maybe college age, walk into here
I'll never forget
and
this.
stand there. Like they stand by that rack right there that the guy was looking at, and just stood there and listened the entire hour. Come back to us at the end and say that they were coming here from Pinehurst to get the guy's iPhone fixed at the Apple store. And they heard someone talking in a retail store and were curious what was going on.
Wow.
That day, he told us that he had walked away from his faith. We're still in touch with him to this day. Walked away from his faith, and the way that I think it was either Danny or Dozie articulated something.
Yeah.
Their mind was like something broke off of them, where they realized, I never had a relationship, but I knew the routines.
Yeah.
And then we got to pray with him that day. We got like rededicated. We actually got to go to his baptism 2 months later. And he got baptized back at his home church.
That's awesome.
The point with all of that is, what people see now, the cameras, the store, people, it's like, we have chairs out, people want to listen. But the whole point is nothing happened until we started taking ownership of our own growth.
Right.
Yeah.
We live in a society today where a lot of emphasis of personal growth is gone. Or there's a lot of life coaches out there, a lot of leadership coaches out there. Great, I mean, that's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, those are valuable roles to be in. But if you don't apply what you're being taught,
Right.
or if you don't take initiative to it, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
People wouldn't be listening through multiple cameras. We didn't even have multiple cameras.
We
We had a
a
broken tripod with
Yeah,
the phone.
exactly. I was gonna say we had a tripod with the phone up. That was
Yeah,
it.
and the leg was broken. So half the time I was leaning it up against a chair just to get it to stand up properly. And now we have all the things that we see. I mean, even Sana, you said yourself earlier, this was like a whole new, you weren't
Yeah.
even sure what this was anymore. Yeah, neither were we.
Yeah.
But it's because just like with you being with a CEO, with running your own inbound sales business,
Right.
there's specific doors that will not open until you take ownership of your growth.
Yeah.
Because you are not in a place to handle what's coming your way.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think the biggest thing that stands out here is just there's so many times where God will inspire us with ideas or will put things in our head, and until we actually do or step out in faith, then there's nothing that He will actually do. Us sitting at home doing nothing about the idea that's in our head, of course God is not, there's no action to be used there.
Yeah.
But as soon as you put on the mic and there's 2 kids standing there and now you're at their baptism, that's what God's working with. And I think that there is just more and more of this culture where ideas and I'm just inspired and it would be so cool if, versus actually stepping out in faith and actually doing the thing that God has put in your head of inspired you to do.
No, but I think that goes into the mindset of not knowing who God is. You know what I'm saying? Because what happens is we get so caught up. I'm speaking from personal experience. We get so caught up in our own journey as far as it having to be perfect that we're afraid of making mistakes.
Right.
And so we put limits on, because we put limits on ourselves.
We talked about that right before the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go, yeah. Because we put limits on ourselves because we can't see ourselves doing this because we're afraid of what would happen?
You better preach.
If what would happen if I did this? Oh my goodness, I'll fall on my face. I'll be it's funny because there's not many times when I've ever done something new that went wrong that it was ever oh.
I want you to finish that thought, but I want to tie into that failure real quick.
Okay. Oh no, go ahead.
So, we talked about this before, and I want you to finish the thought. We have developed this concept of, in the Bible, failure is not final. In the world, failure is condemned and basically ridiculed and saying you messed up, what the heck.
Man, that's mostly the beginning, honestly.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is, when we don't take ourselves out of the failure is final mindset, we don't want to mess up. Problem is, you're human. So
Yeah.
guess what? You're going to mess up.
Right.
The thing is, like you're saying, is we need to get to a point where we see failure as I'm just learning.
Yeah.
The first time you walked, I guarantee you, at 10 months old, you were
Yeah.
not taking perfect steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were, I need to meet you and understand what you did. Because my kids are trying to walk right now, and I want to make sure they do it properly. But we have to get out of this headspace of failure is a bad thing.
Right.
Be excited to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're learning something new.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time to get out of the headspace of crap, I messed up here, I'm so sorry. Literally, that's what God's grace is for.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That was the biggest change that we made, where it was from that failure is this bad thing to if learning is success, then everything is winning,
Yeah.
right? And that was the big change because it was like, oh, we either win or we lose, and like, no, actually, if you learn from the loss, then either way you won.
Exactly.
right?
It's a
And that's-
win-win.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
So
Yeah,
continue.
You only lose when you give up in that regard.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think that's what I've come to learn more and more about myself. It's the understanding of no, go ahead, try it, do it. Like
Yeah.
I think when we start to lose who God is when we put limits on that self of thinking like, oh, I can only do this.
Yeah.
Because why? Like why? Like God talks about it. He's like, look, man, I could raise up, like, you know, like
Yeah.
we can go into many different conversations about who God can raise up from nothing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
All of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so what I start to do,
Yeah.
but what I start to do is like I start to try to pray like, okay, God, I want to do something where I know that if it works, it's only because of you.
Yeah.
Like help me out of
That's
the
good.
realm of like what I think my abilities are, or whatever that is. Make me do something that like I know I have no way of learning how to do this. So all the glory goes towards you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I see really how God moves. I love it when I see people who are like, oh yeah, okay, like for example, this store. There's many times on the podcast we talked about the owner of the store, Man, who started the store. Like it's an amazing story as far as like what she decided, and it's growing and it's moving. But she just was obedient, and that's all God calls us to do.
Yeah.
Just be obedient. Be okay to fail. Be okay to stumble, and then learn from it. I love it because what happens is God doesn't let you down when you do that. And when you're walking in obedience, there's going to be many times when it feels weird. It feels like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I struggling with this? But God's like, yeah, no, don't worry. Keep struggling. Trust me. You go this is gonna be really good. And so for me, failure is one of those things where I want us to get out of the mindset of thinking of it as like this thing to just roadblock you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's what personal growth is.
Yeah. Hit on that qualification.
Well, I was just going to say something that I say to people a lot is just give God your yes and just watch what he does with it.
That's good.
And it's like the amount of times I'm like, if you had told me now that I would be doing what I would be doing 10 years ago, I'd be like, you have the wrong girl. Absolutely not. Like even we were talking beforehand and I was like, I get so nervous before public speaking every single time.
Yeah.
And I preach all around the world, but I'm never not nervous beforehand.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it's like, this isn't me. Like God, this is just me and you, and this is for you. Please work through me.
Yeah.
And it's like still trusting him in like doing it, but it's giving him our yes. And knowing that he's going to follow through, he's going to carry you, and also by trusting him, we continue to grow and we continue to learn to lean on him and all the things that come with it.
Amen.
No, I love that. And one question that we got that came in, which is one I never really think about, but it's an important one, is how do we accept failure and not feel shame?
Ooh, I can speak on this.
That's so good.
Okay. Okay. That's a good question because shame is something that I've had to really ask the Lord to help me with a lot. Because what happens is, failure, when you continually fail at trying something or fail at I don't even like the word fail. I would say trip on something, or you fail trying to do things because you had a mindset of what you thought it was going to be. You start to feel that mindset of man, maybe I'm not good enough. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not who I thought I was. And God's like, yeah, you weren't. You're much better. No, I think that how you learn to deal with that is, like you said, remembering who you are in Christ.
Right.
Remembering who God has made you to be. Because I think that we need to get out of our head of thinking like, oh, we're supposed to be this, when God's like, no, you are already this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're not trying to be something. You are already that thing. You know what I'm saying? So just own that and walk with confidence in what that looks like.
And just keeping in mind, like guilt, shame, like any of those, like are lies about us from the enemy.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, it's where is that coming from, right? That's the question, right? So if it's I'm feeling like a failure, or I'm feeling guilt, or I'm feeling shame about where I am or where I am, it's like, well, examine that. Like take a second and like, what is the result? Like what's the cause of that?
Yeah.
So is it because my parents, like you're a high school and you tried something and your parents, now are like, hey, like what are you doing? Like do you are you even trying your best? Right, or it's you're a college student and you've tried something and you didn't get the result that you wanted. To your point out of it, it's like, well, where is that? Is it your friends, like people around you that are saying you're a fake? Like examining the root of whatever that is, and then letting that be okay. Well, is that who I actually am? Who I know myself to be? Because when we take risks, I mean, this is like goes back to the core of like entrepreneurship. For example, like we failed at 3 businesses in order to make one that's now like a smashing success. Like in order to get to where we want to grow to, then we have to go through failure after failure after failure. And everything, anyone who's ever done anything important and meaningful has had failure after failure after failure, because that's the way that you get by taking the risk and missing the mark. Then that's the only way that we're going to get through it. So it's examining that, moving backwards through, okay, I need to work through wherever that feeling is from. At the end of the day, it's a lie about me, because my identity in Christ is as a conqueror, like as someone who can take life and do meaningful and important work. And then go and do the next thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had one thing to say.
Yeah.
So, no, actually, you go. Then I'll finish. Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of had 2 things. One thing that reminded me when you were speaking is I think I saw this thing on social media that was like, if you were told after 24 no's you'd be given like $1 million, you would be excited for every no.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's often the thing with failure. It's like, okay, yes, fail. Yes, I've fallen down, but I've got back up. Fallen down, gotten back up, but it's all unto the bigger picture and the goal and like getting further ahead. But also something that I was thinking about is there is a massive difference between condemnation and conviction. Like condemnation is like negative.
That's
the
good.
enemy's putting you down. He's like catching your insecurities and punching you harder. You know, he's like, oh yeah, you failed and you're a loser and you suck and you're not good enough. But there's a difference between that and conviction, which is like, oh hey, I love you so much, but why don't we do this differently so you can grow and learn and develop? And I think it's also how we take the failures. Like I never want to not be teachable. Like after, like it's dependent on where I am and who I'm with, but like after doing like a preach or a message, I'm like, hey, give me feedback. Like what can I grow? How can I improve? Was there something that I did? Normally the feedback is you need to talk slower, because I get so passionate and so into it that I'm like, and they're just like, you need
that's
to just...
me. That's me. Yeah, I get told that a lot. Yeah.
So, but then now when I'm preaching, I put in my notes, through my message, slow down. And like just a little reminder. And it's like, okay, I took a quote failure of, you talked at the speed of light that we need to now listen back on 0.5 speed, as like, okay, opportunity to learn and grow. That was a fail. People couldn't understand, but now I've like worked on it. So I think it's like, when we do fail, it's immediately running to Jesus for the love and the godly conviction for how I can grow, and being very aware to get rid of any lies of the enemy and condemnation, and recognizing that that's not us, that's not the truth. Jesus is the truth. Our identity is in him, and growing and learning is a positive thing.
Amen. Yeah, and to go back to what you said too, what I think is a beautiful thing as far as answering that question, Dennis. One of the other things I want to talk about, and a more tangible thing to also help with that, is the people in your life.
Yes.
So what you talk about is someone you come back after that you trust to give you positive feedback. For me, when you deal with shame and guilt and all those things, it is very important that at times you're gonna have to have people in your life to be
Right.
like, hey, look, that ain't true.
Yes.
What I had
That's
with
very
Danny,
good.
what I was suffering from was shame and guilt, and Danny was like, nah, this ain't you. That's the enemy. This ain't you.
Yeah.
That's not who God is. That's not who you are.
Yeah.
You are a human. But you are a son of God, and you need to walk in that. And for me, that's like a bold lift off the shoulder. I think what happens a lot of times is when you're dealing with shame and guilt and things like this, you struggle because you're isolated. You think that
Right.
you have to try to figure this out for yourself, and
And the
only
enemy
God can
likes to isolate you.
Yeah,
make
exactly.
You feel like you're
That's good.
isolated.
Exactly,
very good.
and it's beautiful because God shows like, nah, you're not supposed to be walking
Yeah.
through life by yourself. As a matter of fact, your struggles ain't even for you.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times it's for others.
Yeah.
It's for others to see how you handle this, and then
Yeah.
they can relate, and also you could be a light in their story as well.
Yeah.
And so I think when it comes to shame and guilt is, one, definitely go to God and let him tell you the truth about who you are.
Yeah.
But then also have people around you to also share that truth and to be in your life as well. So that's what I think is the main thing. And like you said, the difference between conviction and condemnation is great, but I think it's very important to like make sure you have people in your life to show you that sometimes.
Yeah.
I had to ask Danny to bring my iPad over because I had something came to mind that I never really thought of before. But you were talking earlier about you had to fail at basically multiple businesses before
Yeah.
to have one that smashed. Leaders are willing to lose.
Amen. Yes.
Leaders are willing to say, I'm down to mess up. Like it's not that we always look at leadership as the most successful person, which is true that they had some things that went successfully.
Right.
But the way I've been learning to look at leadership is not just as how great someone's become, but how much they had to lose, how often they had to lose, how often they have to be publicly humiliated,
Yeah.
how often they have to literally be told no. I mean, how many times did the like my mind's blanking on the name now, but the author of all the Harry Potter books, like how many times was she told no, we won't
J.K.
publish
Rowling.
this? Exactly, J.K. Rowling. And now the success of the books. Think about Walt Disney. How many no's he was told by banks that wouldn't give him loans,
Yeah.
and now we have Disney World, Disneyland. The amount of times that what we see as winners had to lose,
Yeah.
we don't think about. And it's really just realizing we look at losing as a final result rather than leaders are willing to lose. We're simply willing to lose first.
Right.
And when we look up to somebody, we look up to them because they had the success. But we don't. But we also need to realize, I admire him because of all he had to lose to get there.
Yeah, and we think about like the no's or the times that they had to lose, and that is true. Like it's a massive like how many no's, how many times they had to be had to lose. The other big thing is how many hard things that they had to do.
Yeah.
Like how many things that no one else was willing to do. I think about even just like routines, like you're talking about, like waking up at 6 a.m. for a month and like, oh, I'm seeing benefit out of this hard thing that I wouldn't normally do. It's like if the first thing of my day is a hard thing, then how much more am I going to be willing to endure a hard thing at 10 a.m., at 4 p.m., at 8 p.m., right? And it's like the drive of a leader to be able and willing to do the hard things that no one else is willing to do. That may include failures and may include the no's, but even just like me having a client that had a bad experience and taking ownership for a client who's coming to me and saying like, Parker, this was terrible, like it was an unacceptable experience, blah, blah. It's like, dang, like is someone just like on the street, like just willing to be told straight to their face that this was like a terrible experience working with them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, are you
Yeah.
willing to be told that like you would rather have never paid me a single dollar than worked with me? Are you willing to say I would have rather my life would have been better off if I hadn't worked for you because of something that it would like? What's the extent to which there's obviously a balance of we're doing everything to the best possible ability of our human ability, but we're going to mess up. We're not going to be perfect. And so us having those hard conversations, hard experiences, and learning from them and asking for feedback and genuinely implementing is such a huge part of success.
Yeah.
I think something that's really important is like falling in love with the journey. I feel like we've become such a like now generation. Like,
Yes.
you know, I want food delivered to my door. Amazon
Uber Eats.
Prime.
Yeah.
Uber Eats. Like,
Exactly. Amazon now.
Exactly. Like it's like I want something now. I want to go
Yeah.
shopping.
Yo,
I
I
want it
forgot about
now. I
that.
want food. I want it now.
Social media.
Social media.
Paying
This-
over $3 to get
this-
it in 2 hours.
Yeah. Like
Binge
even
watching
like
Netflix. It's like it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's like this social media clip is 30 seconds long. I need 10 seconds. Swipe. Like it's not fast enough. I need it now. Or like I want to be a jacked bodybuilder. I want to be jacked now. And
want
it's
it
like
yesterday.
I'm like and it's like actually that doesn't happen.
doesn't
But then
work.
when we don't get the immediate results that we're looking for, we quit and give up because
really
we're
good.
like, well, no. I worked out once. Why don't I have abs? To be fair, I do that. Like, oh, no. But like, you know, we're not like willing to put in like the time. And even like I get people say to me like, oh, I wish I could like travel the world doing missions. And I'm like, okay, well, are you willing to go for like years with zero salary, completely volunteering? Are you willing to go and sleep on a floor with cockroaches
I don't think
and
I was
like
calling me that anymore.
but do you know what I mean? Like I feel like
That's so
there's
good.
so many things where it's like people are like, I want this and I want this now, and it's like, yeah, but are you willing to go through the hardships to get there?
Yeah.
Like there are so many things along my story where it's been hardship after hardship, but I'm so thankful for them. I am thankful for the times that I have been broken. I am thankful for the times where I've been weeping. I'm thankful for the times where I've just been like, Lord, I cannot do this. Like it's all you, because that has made me stronger and develop my character and develop my endurance and my strength, so that when I get to a certain situation, I'm like, okay, I feel ready for this. But it takes time. It takes endurance. It takes putting in the hard work. And it's like, but I think we, because we don't see the results fast enough, we get up. Or like, I wish I knew my Bible in depth, but if I'm not willing to put in the time and the
Reading
effort
it
it takes to
daily.
study my Bible,
Yeah, that's
it's
good.
not going to happen.
That's really
So
good.
I think all of this comes down to the personal development of like, we have to be intentional and put in the time to be able to see the bigger picture results and not give up when it gets hard.
Yeah, even podcasting, right? Like so during COVID, this was one of my big like learning investments that I was doing podcasting, just because I was like, people will get on podcasts and I'll just have conversations with cool people that I wouldn't ordinarily meet, right?
Yeah.
And so I was doing this, and literally it was 80 episodes, right, before I even like started like having the impact of like seeing people that reached out and said like, oh dang, like I really like this, and I ended up getting a job off of that. I ended up starting a business and meeting my business partner, like all of this stuff. But it was like, it's the time and energy. It wasn't episode 1, it wasn't episode 10, it wasn't episode 50. It's like, it's literally the repetitions of over and over again, reading the Bible, praying, relationship with God, evangelism, mission, like all of it is reps over time and building that in a massive way.
If I had given up when I got like rejected for preaching the gospel,
for the
like,
first time.
like that first rejection of like me being like, do you know Jesus? Like, you know, being so passionate, giving my real best gospel message preach, and they're like, don't want anything to do with
Please
it.
leave me alone.
Yeah,
I ain't
like,
gonna
leave
lie.
me alone, don't talk to me. Like,
No.
if I had let that moment like stop me,
That's so good.
so many other people wouldn't be saved now. It's like, we
Dang, that's-
cannot let the first failure.
Yes.
Like I would say to people, I'm like, enjoy the rejection. Let it
Yes.
stir you up to be even more passionate the next time. And like, if you keep being rejected, you're still sowing the seeds. You don't know what the Lord is going to keep doing, like behind the scenes. Like, there was one time we preached in this church in Mexico, and it felt like a flop. Like, I was like, this was an epic failure. I'm there like prophesying my butt off and preaching the gospel, and they're all just looking at us like, no man, you gotta leave. And then like we then a team went back the following year, and they found out that church was literally about to close. They were getting so like caught up with drugs and abuse, like all of this different stuff. But after that time when we thought it was a flop, they are now a thriving, passionate, turn their lives around church. So you don't know what feels like a rejection and a failure, what God can do behind the scenes.
No,
too.
I'll even say that in my life, honestly. I remember people, before I even became saved, coming up to me and I wouldn't say it was like outwardly rejected, but it was more so like, what are you talking about? Like, like, I'm going to live this way. Like, what are you talking about? But I didn't realize like those seeds were planted in me to the point where like, oh, when I started to have questions about purpose, then God found the perfect person. Well, I guess two people. One of them I married, but found the other person was my cousin, who then we had a conversation about Christ, and that's what led me to be saved. And it's crazy because it's like, the reason why I say that too is because, you know, when I get rejection, I'm like, nah. I prefer rejection over at least you not caring. Because when it's rejection, I'm just like, oh, you thought about this.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. Well, no, you know, we're good.
You go think some more
Let's
about
go
it.
explore about it. I'll see you. I'll see you when I see you. God willing, I'll see you in heaven. But like, what it means to me is like, okay, at least that person's stirred to even consider and think about it, because now we can have a conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like, if you're not getting those or like if you're not having the time where you're like, I don't know if that even like went well at all, or if I'm not having the time where someone's like, hey, I don't want to talk about this, like this just really isn't like not for me, then like, am I putting in, like, am I giving it my best? Like, am I taking out, if I'm never getting any rejection ever, like, oh, I forgot we're promised an easy life as Christians. No way, you know, like if you're never facing that type of experience, like, are you being bold in your faith when God is putting opportunities in front of you to share the gospel?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how the name 3D initially started with Danny Dozy and me, but over the course of time, it actually transitions to standing for developing disciples for deployment. Because the word talks about us being in the military. It talks about us being prepped for battle.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the military takes time to train for when they go to get deployed.
Right.
Same thing with if any hero that you read about in the Word, they all had a prep time to step into their calling. We had our own prep time for this banner to be standing here now.
Yeah.
This is going to be the most funny and awkward moment, like in general, but I've never addressed the audience in the store once in my life. But if you guys have ever had to prep for something, put your hand up. If you had to prep for something in your life, just real quick, just 30 seconds. If you had to prep for something, put your hand up. Sweet. So here's the thing. Everyone put their hand up, which means at some point something was hard. We've gotten to a point in society and culture where hard is being rejected, where we're walking away from hard.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense why we have weak people nowadays. It makes sense why, and I've personally met them where we have weak fathers, we have weak brothers, we have weak men, we have weakness as this cancer in society, because we've walked away from things that are hard.
Right.
So I don't really like that. You weren't supposed to like hard. It's not your job to like it. It's your job to do it.
Yeah.
And something that a mentor of mine told me a long time ago was, you figure it out. Nothing in the Word was easy. This is an extreme example, but you think taking whips till bones were seen for Jesus was easy?
Right.
Heck no. The amount of beating, the amount of things he went through, the amount of ridicule that the disciples went through once Jesus was taken up, nothing of value is easy in life.
Right.
The problem is we've been painted this picture that it's almost unattainable, that we don't even try in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely concerned to some degree that if believers, I'll keep it to the people who are faith believers, if we don't take ownership of the fact that we are responsible for our growth, we're responsible to teach our kids, we're responsible to provide for them, if we don't take that responsibility, those around us who are attached to us will find it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
They already have. That's why social media is as crazy as it is.
Right.
That's why all these different shows are on these different streaming channels. That's why there's so much fighting going on in life right now. Because people who were given responsibility said, this got too hard, whatever. Well, don't complain about your results if you weren't taking the responsibility.
Yeah.
It's really your job. And going back to the personal development, it's the reason why we develop ourselves on our own time. Because if we don't pour into us, we got nothing to pour out here.
Yeah.
Right? If we don't pour into ourselves, I could have wasted the last hour talking to a camera. Right. I'm pretty confident that if we don't invest into ourselves, people can walk in here, listen, and they'll walk right back out and get nothing from it.
Right.
Then we've literally wasted an hour. Like it's the whole concept of a tree trunk. Okay, super simple concept. It has branches. Well, if the branches have water, if they have nourishment, they will provide fruit.
Yeah.
but the fruit was never for the branches. It was never for the tree. It's for the animals that came that fell when the fruit was ripe and it fell off.
That's
good.
The animals were blessed by that fruit.
Yeah.
Which means that what is stemming off of you
Isn't
is
just
your
for you.
responsibility.
Yeah.
What is going on in your life, the relationships, that's what you've attracted. I was a part of a talk a little while back where it was just about relationships, where if you develop yourself if you seek out the people you want to be like, you'll become like them. It's like the Warren Buffett quote. You're like the 5 people you're closest to.
Right.
Well, you can reverse that too. You are going to attract to you who you are most like.
Right.
So if you want to be able to be like somebody else, if you want to be able to look up to somebody else, whatever it may be, you have to pay attention to who you are.
Right.
You can't blame somebody else for who you are. You blame you for who you are.
Yeah.
And we don't take responsibility in society right now where I'm not good with money. Oh, so you brush it off to an accountant who took time. They took time to learn it themselves.
Right.
Why don't you learn how to do it?
Yeah.
And then what's too much on your plate, you can work alongside the accountant to make sure your job is done right. The amount of phone calls I have in a week where people tell me, you have to move on, they aren't doing a good job anymore. It's sad that you had to, if you know how to do it and you can go alongside them, you could technically work with that person. But because we don't take time to develop ourselves,
Right.
we have to push stuff off. It's the same thing I've told these guys. Like the guy who makes us look good online, Sterling, he does the amount of wiring he has going on, the amount of camera work he does. I'm trying to learn it because I'm not going to be known as the guy who just hopes it works, and if it doesn't, okay, what now? It's my job to learn everything, because if I'm the head of my home, cool. If I don't know something, my job to figure it out. If I can't make a meal, my job to figure it out. If I haven't provided well for my kids, my job to figure it out. As a man, it's my job to figure out how to make it work. Just like Adam did in the garden. He started working the soil, and then God saw that he needed help. He provided him a helper, and Eve came along. But it wasn't until Adam took responsibility for what God gave him to do. If we're not seeing the blessings in life that we want to, if we're not seeing the fruit that we're trying to see, instead of asking God to bless you, ask, what am I missing?
Yeah.
What have I not been stewarding? Because once we start stewarding the things that God's given us to steward, bro, those floodgates start opening.
Yeah.
Once we started stewarding our own walk with God more intentionally,
Yeah.
cameras started showing up. Once we started taking care of the cameras and the equipment that we were given to use, a banner showed up. And all of a sudden, these different doors started opening. But it didn't happen until we took responsibility for what we knew we were given, and we got to see the fruit from that.
Yeah, man.
And my only encouragement to anyone listening, whether it's at the store or on the cameras, is if you're missing out on the blessing, or if you're not experiencing what you want to be experiencing, have you checked yourself on it? How have I taken responsibility? Have I gone, whether you're a believer or not, have you gone to God if you're a believer? Have you checked yourself internally if you're not? Have you just checked yourself on how are you claiming responsibility for things where you flopped, but you want to get better? And that's it. Are you taking responsibility? There's so much fruit that comes from just, let me
Yes.
try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let me try again today.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're sitting in is literally a example of, okay, don't know how to do it, let's figure it out.
Amen. Yeah, I always, I tell my wife this too. Look, it's 24 hours. Sometimes she would think about like, man, what about this in a month? Like this, I'm like, hey, look, I'm not even thinking about that right now. He's like, I'm not even like, you can put that on paper, we can play plans, but we got 24 hours right now.
Yeah.
Let's get through today. What can we do to be better today? That's it. We don't have to worry about tomorrow. We don't have to worry about weeks come, because you don't even know what you're going to be like tomorrow. You don't even know if you're going to have it tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? God willing, we do, but just in case, let's just get through what we
Yeah.
got today. And when you think like that, you really set the mindset of like, okay, you can accomplish a lot today if you really think about it.
Yeah.
I want us to leave this place kind of remembering, like you were saying, what is our purpose, right? What are the pitfalls that we walk through that makes us think that we're not good enough to try anything or to do anything? And what are ways that we can strengthen ourselves, or the way I would describe it, allow God to strengthen us to be able to overcome those challenges. And I think it just takes steps each day. It doesn't have to be anything drastic. Like you said, you just started waking up at 6 a.m. Like it was just something that like, hey, look, I'm just going to start and let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And you're going to fail sometimes. I'm sure there's times during that time, possibly, maybe you're great at it, but possibly during that time when I didn't wake up at 6 a.m. today. I didn't wake, that's just possibility. But it's okay.
Yeah.
You just keep going.
Right.
You just keep trying, and you allow God to work with that. What I think what God wants is to see a willing, broken heart who understands, like, hey, look, I'm not perfect. And God's like, great, I can do something with that. I can do a lot with that, actually. And I want us to leave here remembering, like, hey, look, we are all created in the immense beauty of Christ, and he wants us to live with him to show us what our purpose is. And if you just give your heart to trust that, to trust in him, he can open up doors that you wouldn't imagine. That's just me. And I'm living part of it too. So.
That's good. So as we close out, I want to get one from both of y'all. If you could give any listener just one next step of how they can apply whatever part they heard from today, what would your closing remark be?
No pressure.
Wow. So something that came to mind. So last year, the Lord made it very, very clear through many people that I'm meant to write a book. And I'm not a reader. So I was like, okay, I should become a reader to be able to write a book. And I was like, okay, my step to writing is I'm going to start reading. And one of the books that I started reading was Atomic Habits. And
That's
a good
that'll be a
book.
podcast episode on
Yeah,
its own.
that's a good
literally,
book.
it's like the juiciest book. It's so good.
Shout out to James Clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing in Atomic Habits is they talk about what's your 1%. So like what's your like 1% margins, and it's like so for example, with my reading, I was like, okay, one of the things that they said in Atomic Habits was if you want to start reading, put your book on your pillow. So as you go to bed, it's already there. It's on your pillow. You pick it up, read a chapter before you go to sleep, or like if you want to work out in the morning, lay out an outfit like in the bathroom or like whatever it is.
Or go sleep in that outfit.
Go to sleep in the outfit. But I think for me, I was like, okay, that makes it doable. I'm very much like, oh yeah, this is my goal. But then it's like I don't have the easy steps to reach it, and then you kind of give up. So for example, my like get up at 6 a.m. I was like, okay, my 1% is I'm gonna get up a little bit earlier every day and then have an extra time with the Lord. And it was like 1% little things that I was doing was helping me reach the 100%, or like make my way closer to getting there. So I think my suggestion would be like, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and like, like it would be like, oh, I want to be this isn't a real goal, but like I want to be a jacked bodybuilder. Okay, so what are my like 1% steps to get there, instead of being like, oh, I'm gonna go crazy and work out for 7 hours in the gym and eat 10 protein shakes on top of like 27 eggs and 500 steaks every day. That's just not an attainable thing to do every day. But it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a 30-minute thing, I don't know, like whatever it is. I feel like my thing would be like, what's your 1%? And like for me, it was like, I'm going to read a chapter of a book every day so that I'm getting better at reading, so that will then impact my writing.
Amen.
And then just do it. Like,
And actually do it.
Just do the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll quickly add on, have someone keep you accountable.
Amen.
That's
I was
good.
thinking about that's
Very
my
good.
next
There's even like certain people and like certain friends where I'm like, hey, I want to do this, keep me accountable. And then if I like don't do it, I'm like, hey girl, I didn't do it. And she's like, you need to do it. Like, you know, get them like, or I say to them, I'm like, slap me around the face with a wet fish if I don't do it. Like, just kind of like, keep me accountable.
Yeah, that's not a saying we have around here. I don't know where you got that from.
That's real crazy.
That could be a Sannerism.
But that's so slap me with. Anyways, continue. I'll have so many
But
questions
like,
after this.
keep me accountable.
No, I get it.
So, like,
that's
I'm
a
like,
very
that would
interesting.
be my kind of like little
Not a
ending.
real thing. To clarify, in case anyone was wondering.
Wet fish.
What's your 1%?
for the
Have
story.
someone keep you
I'm
accountable.
definitely gonna use that later.
Because at the end of the day, like, that is it. It is just, you have dreams, you have things that God's put in your head, and there are so many great ministries, great businesses, great relationships, great things that don't exist in the world because you haven't put them in the world, right? And so that's
good.
the thing, right? Is like, all of the, all of the best ideas and the best visions of things that have never been created are just because that first step was never taken.
Yeah.
And so if you got nothing out of it today except for this, take the first step today.
Yeah.
Amen.
So good.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not looking at any of that anymore. So, first off, thank you for that conversation. That was
Heck yeah.
epic.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you
was
for
epic.
having
Thanks
us.
for having us. Yeah.
For those tuning in, if you didn't get like 20 pages of notes from that, you couldn't write fast enough apparently. But if you got something from it, I'm just gonna ask this. Just like you share those goofy golf videos, those goofy stand-up comedy videos, those goofy kitchen videos with your wife or your girlfriend, if you see this added value to you, think of someone that it could add value to. It's not about the numbers, it's simply about the impact of life. So if you
Yeah.
think of someone that could receive value from this, take a step and share it, and see what kind of response you get back from the individual.
Yeah.
We'll be back here next month, same time, same day. We're not gonna share the info yet because it's not 100% clear yet.
Yeah, we got.
But we're finalizing some details.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are here for the first time, thank you for joining us. For those of you who came back, love to have you here, and hope to someday see you here in person in these seats, hanging out with us and chatting up with us. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
We're good.
Yeah. It's still back there.